Alright, when we left off this video the last time, we had textured up the exterior of this hangar, and we'd thrown some doors on there and some symbols on there, and just kind of showed you how to make some of that stuff. If you'll notice, I've kind of gone back in here. I had to recreate the hangar because I didn't save it last time, so I just had to put a quick set of textures on it. So I'm still using that tutorial texture file for the exterior of this hangar. Notice I don't have the door on here, the Thunderbird symbol, and I made the roof a different texture altogether. But that's it's not really an issue. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go ahead and create the inside of this hangar. We're going to texture that inside of the hangar. We'll put a floor on the hangar, and to finish it off, we'll go ahead and open the hangar doors up slightly. So we'll show you how to do all that stuff all in one swift little, hopefully not more than about 15-minute video here. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is create the insides. And luckily, since in the other video we did not delete the interior portions of the hangar doors, those are still there. But while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and delete the bottom of those hangar doors, because they're not going to be seen. So we should go ahead and delete those. So I'm already on that part. Go to F7 mode. Actually, I got to click in the box. There we go, F7. And I'll just scroll till I get the bottom facing polygons. There's one, there's two, there's three, and I think we can probably get rid of the top ones too, I think, because those are covered. Yeah, we could do the top ones too, because they're not going to be seen. And I'm not sure why that one has an inward facing polygon. We will get rid of that. Okay, there's one, there's two, and there's three. Alright, so we've gotten rid of all the pertinent polygons on that, and since I don't want to go through that process again for the other set of hangar doors, I'll just get rid of them. I'll just come back over here, use my quick little copy paste technique, go into parts properties, we'll move it to the opposite side of the grid, hit OK, and then we'll go transform, flip, and X, and we've got basically the same side now, or the same thing on both sides. So that's, again, a way to use that little technique so that you don't have to sit here and constantly go through multiple parts, scrolling through the different polygons and trying to delete that stuff. So now that we have that kind of that basic part of it done, let's go ahead and make the interior portions of our hangar, and we can do that just by using the exterior portions, basically copying those, pasting those, and just flipping their polygons to face the inside. So here's the outside of the exterior of our hangar structure. So easiest way to make the interior is just go copy, paste, come up here to polygon, and I guess we have to be in polygon mode. So click on the triangle polygon, and go ahead and select the second one down, Shift F or flip all / selected, and what we should see is the inside of our hangar now, which is already textured for us. Okay, so we don't necessarily want that textured, so what we can do is just go into part mode, go F4, and you can clear out the texture so we can at least see it a little bit easier, so that as we work on the inside, we can kind of see what we need to texture and what we don't need to texture. Alright, let's make the roof again. So here's the roof. Again, easiest way to make it, go copy, paste, polygon mode, and let's see, polygon and flip all. And now we have our roof in there, and it's already kind of got a texture on it, which is the same as the outside. But we want to put a different texture on that. So that's basically, we've now made basically the interior of the hangar fairly quickly there. And we'll start working on texturing the different sides. So for this, we've introduced a slightly different texture to the tutorial series, and you're going to have to, if you haven't downloaded it, go into the video, or go into the exact thread for this video, which should be texturing a hangar part 2 or something to that effect. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but go into that thread in the texture that's required to do the interior. I will go ahead and load that in there, and you guys can download that. Again, just like the other one, place that into your Flight Simulator 9 / texture folder, the global texture folder, and that's where we'll pull it from. Alright, so let's go make use of our texture file that we're using for this video. And so this will be the first time we've actually introduced another texture to the tutorial series here. Notice again, I copied the part. It's still got its original texture definition. It says top, but since we flipped it, it's now flipped around. So I can go ahead and clear that out. and that should get rid of the interior side of that texture. We'll go back to F4, and this time you got to think about it. Which way or which surface do we need to put this texture on for the interior portion of the roof? And I believe it's going to be the bottom. I could be wrong, but we'll go ahead and select the bottom. We have to add our new texture. I'll go ahead and browse my texture folder. It's also called, starts with tutorial. There it is, tutorial hanger interior. Okay, and it's just a pretty basic large sheet of a hanger wall that I think I took a picture of somewhere at one point and have turned this into a texture. So I'll go ahead and select it, and just for the roof portion, let's unzoom this here a little bit so we can see. I think for the roof we could either use this middle section or we could use this bottom one. But I think what I'll do, and notice I've stretched this all the way across the top so that I can use the tiling feature. I think we'll go with this guy right here in the middle. I'll use the entire width of it. Okay, we'll apply it, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, not too bad, but it looks a little bit too big for this particular hanger. So again, a trick we can use is we can either use the scale feature. I'm sorry, not the scale, but the tiling feature. So we can come in here to properties, and we could do this. I don't know. Let's do it 4 times in the X tile version, or the X tile direction, and let's see what that looks like. May look a little bit better. All right, so that looks a little bit better. Okay. And you can play with that as much as you want and see and work with that as much as you want and see what you want to do with that. Okay. Another little trick you could do real quick is you could take this part as it is now, okay, and you could go to point mode. You could scale the back half of it in the Z direction so that it basically scales to the very middle of the axis, so that it'll basically create a half a part here. So that should do that. I'll go back to part. I'll go back to F4, and basically we're gonna shorten this texture we just put on it by half. And it didn't do anything, I guess, because it stretched it. So now what I'm going to do is just take this part. I'm going to go copy, paste, and since the axis is right here in the middle, I can go transform, flip, Z, and there we go. It's now put basically a mirror image of it on the back half of this interior. And that to me looks a little bit more realistic as far as like what you would see in a hanger roof. So just something you can try there. Of course, I'll take this part, I'll highlight it, I'll take the previous part, which is the other half of the interior portion of the roof, I'll highlight it, join the two just so that I have one part now. I'm not going to go back and touch the texture, so I don't want to mess with that. And just to be good modelers here, we'll go snap to scale, 3 points eliminated, which is this point here, and this point here. All right. So that's the roof done for now. So to me, that's one of the really neat features of the program, is that if you know how to manipulate the textures, you can get quite a bit out of just one basic texture sample just by copying the parts, merging the parts, making multiple copies of them, etc., etc. So that looks pretty good for the roof. Let's move on to the interior of the building. Okay, and now you actually have 2 of these. You have the exterior, which I believe may or may not be this part. There's one very easy way to see which way this particular part is facing, and that's go into polygon mode. So hit F7 and see which direction the polygons are pointing. And if you can see this clear enough on the video over here, you can see that this polygon is pointing inwards, which tells me that this is the inside section of the hanger. So this is one we want to use. We can note the name box.6. Okay, if we want, we can come in here and we can actually change the name to interior, just to make it easier to identify the part when we're working on it. IOR, there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and put some textures on this, and we'll start with our normal texture sheet. Alright, so looking at the inside of the hanger here, let's select a texture for it. It doesn't have any texture definitions, I think, because I must have cleared them out. That's right, we cleared them out here a few minutes ago. So we can do the front, the back, the left, and the right. So why don't we just go ahead and start knocking these out. Now remember, let me show you something here. If you think about it, the front of this part is actually this section right down here. Again, if I go into the polygon mode and show you which direction that polygon points, the inward section of this part, so in other words the interior part, the front surface of this part, the front showing surface, I guess is the best way to think about it, is actually the rear wall. Okay, so that's another another part of this whole texturing process is you have to think about, if I select the front, which surface of this part, depending on how my part is facing or how the polygons on your part are facing, which surface am I working with. So just keep that in mind, especially when you're working with interior surfaces where the polygons might be flipped around. So this is the front, so in other words my back wall. So we want to kind of make it look make it look like something that you would obviously see on the back wall of a hangar. So we'll go back here to our hangar interior sample, and I think I'm going to use this guy right here on the bottom because it has kind of that look to it. So we'll select the whole thing and we'll hit OK. We'll just see how it comes out here. I may want to use my tiling feature, but that looks pretty good right there. Okay, it's not it's not perfect. It doesn't necessarily have the shading matching the roof, but that's okay. And again, we can experiment with it. We can go in here and go to properties and double that. If we double it, it might be a little bit too much. So let's go X tiles 2, hit OK, OK, and let's see what it looks like. That doesn't look too bad. I think the doubling is actually not that bad. So that looks okay for the back. So let's go ahead and do that to the front portion of the hangar, which is actually going to be, for this particular part, the back. So I already know what I need to do. I need to come in here just to make it easier to work with. I'll scale it down to 50%, go all the way across 1024, and then we'll go X tiles 2. And I won't even have to check it. I know what it'll look like. And remember, well heck, we'll check it just to show you. Remember, the front, the only portion that it's going to show is that little section there. But the cool thing is that this section up here, because we've used the same numbers and the same tiling, is actually going to match this section back here. Alright, so to do the two sides, I think for the purposes of this, I think the sides, the length of the sides is close enough to the width that we can probably get away with it. Now if you want, you do have this measuring tool with the ruler mode right here, and we can just do a real basic measure of the width, and it'll come up and say what is that, 39.8 meters, so 40 meters basically. We can do a measurement of the width. I can't talk tonight. And let's see how close I was. 26. So it's 3/4, but it's close enough. Since we've done a tile back here, we've taken the texture and we've applied it twice across the width. We're not going to really be able to duplicate that by picking 3/4 of the texture for the length. So we'll just have to go with probably the full texture. We'll multiply it times 2 with an X tile, and we'll see how that looks. So let me get out of the ruler mode here. F4 for left and right. We'll pick the same thing. We'll just pick that whole big section down here. And again, I can, if I want to, I could just come down here. I already know that I need the whole width of it, so it just needs to have the right Y size. 1024, 2 X tiles. Okay, and then I'll do the right side as well, since I already know what I'm looking for. Down here, whole thing, just doing it this way keeps me from having to drag it all the way across, which is a little bit time consuming. Times 2, and let's see what we got here. Okay, so not too bad. Okay, and there is a neat little trick you can use. See how we're kind of limited by how we can see it by basically having to look underneath of our part here. All right, so remember, we can always hide all the other parts and look at just the part that we have displayed. So again, in my setup, orange is the current part. If I press my space bar to highlight that, okay, then I hit the A key to highlight everything else, and then I hit the H key for hotel. H is in hotel. Notice it hides all the other parts. And again, this is just a real nice little feature that allows me to look at the current part without having all the interference from the other parts. So I can get a good look at my part here. I can, again, put my crosshairs at a specific location of the part that I want to look. I can right-click, and I can hit center. Okay, and then I can zoom into that exact area, which isn't exactly the area I was looking for here. Let's go, I guess it was back here I was looking for. Center, there we go. And what I'm trying to look at here is my alignment of this dark black line, and you can see that it's off by maybe 1 or 2 pixels. So we could adjust that by adjusting the Y. And the easiest way to see how far we're off is just come back in here to the texture properties. We'll see what we did for the front and the back. Back's not really that critical, but the front, I did a Y size of 276. I believe for the sides I did 279, so let's just see. Let me check the right side. It just needs to be 276 on the size. Oh, I'm at 281. Okay, so I'm going to back that down to 276. I'll do the same for the left. Back it down to 276 pixels. There we go. And now that line should line up perfectly. And I must be a liar. What did we do wrong there? Oh, I think we looked at the wrong one. Let's look at the front. What did we do for the front? 276. Let me try 748 for the Y crop. That might also do it. So let's just make sure my Y crop is what did I say? 276? No, I'm getting all confused here. Stand by, go back. This is the number I'm interested in, this Y crop, so that all three texture definitions have the exact same definition. So 748 is that magic number. So let me make sure these two have 748, and then that should fix the problem. And if not, I will look like an idiot. 748, all right, and 7. Yeah, see, I was close. That's where it's off. 748. Okay, this should ultimately fix it so that it's nice and lined up. There we go. Okay, so now the corners line up together. If I come over here and I center this corner up, you can see that it lines up nice and perfectly. Okay, so that's an example of where using those data blocks and the pixel widths and numbers and crops and everything can actually come in very handy. All right, so now that we're fairly happy with the interior texture, we can go ahead and center the whole project up. So I'll go Shift and C, and then to unhide everything, to unhide all those other parts, I'll go Shift plus H. Unhides everything. We're back to our full hanger. We've now got an interior on the hanger. Let's blow this guy up here. There we go. We have a nice interior on the hanger and a nice roof. Obviously, the interior of the hangar doors has not been textured yet, but we can fix that as well. Okay. So again, all about working harder, or excuse me, working smarter, not harder. So I'm just going to take one set of hangar doors here. I guess to get out of this, I'll have to see what I'm doing here. One set. And there's nothing wrong with, if you've, kind of figure out you want to redo the texture on one part, as long as the other part's an exact copy of it, you can always go back in and redo it. So I'll just delete one of those, and that leaves me with the one single set of hangar doors here. And the interior portion, which would be in this part, would be the back. Okay, I'll just go, we don't want to touch these. These are already set. So in this case, it'll be the back. I'll come in here and select, again, hangar interior, just to make it look somewhat similar. And I think this top section is the only section we haven't used yet, and that's fine. And I'll just pick the whole thing all the way across, 1024, and we'll apply that to the three sets of three doors. We'll hit OK, and we'll just see how it looks. It's nothing special, but it gives it, some kind of a little bit of relief and a little bit of something that looks a little bit different than the sidewalls, which is, probably what you would see with this kind of thing. Okay, notice if I come up here, let me get rid of that. If I come up here and I center right here, you're going to see we kind of have a little bit of an issue with our hanger where that exterior portion is showing through. You could fix that if you wanted to. You could leave it like that. It's really up to you. You don't that most people aren't going to see that kind of thing, so I wouldn't be too terribly worried about that. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that overall look of that interior portion of that hangar door. So again, to redo the whole thing is silly. We'll just take it. We'll go copy, paste. I'll go ahead and flip it first this time. Flip it in the X, and then I'll go ahead and move it over to the opposite side. Again, you can only really do this when you're working with a single object at a time or a single model at a time. If you're out here, let me get out of here and bring the grid up. If you're out here, and you're building a scene where the parts are kind of all over out here, it's a lot tougher to use this kind of copy, flip, and paste technique. But we can do that here since we're working right on the center line here. All right, so that just leaves basically a floor structure and the hangar doors themselves. So we'll go ahead and fix that right now. So let's go ahead and make the floor first, and I'll show you a real neat little trick to make the floor. The good thing so far about our hangar model is that all the parts and pieces of the model itself fit pretty well. I don't see any gaps in the model between like the roof line and the side of the structure. if there are some, we can go in there and fix that, but I think everything fits pretty tight. Okay, one way to check that would be to just pick a corner like this, center it up, expand this particular view, and then zoom this in until you can't zoom in anymore. Let me center that up, especially in the corner where the roof and the side of the structure meet. Just zoom that in as far as you can go until it won't zoom anymore, and then look to see if there's multiple lines. If everything lines up, the roof lines up, you'll just have one continuous looking line, which is what we do here. So we have a good situation going here. We can make a floor structure very easily just by copying the roof structure, flattening it out, and then moving it down. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to select our roof, and it doesn't matter interior or exterior. That's boxed out 1, so I believe that's the is that the interior or exterior? And again, there's a way to figure that out. Go F7. Okay, polygons pointing outwards. That is indeed the exterior of the roof. So I'll just copy this. So copy, paste. I'll go ahead and go to point mode. Use my highlight box. I'll select this center set of points. Okay, and then I'm just going to scale these in the Y direction till they won't scale anymore, which is about right there, and that's fine. Let's see if I can get it to go anymore. No, that's fine. And what I can actually do is just kind of eyeball it for now, since it didn't scale all the way. And the only reason it didn't scale all the way is it's only going to scale till it reaches the center of the axis. So I'll have to actually move it the rest of the way here. So I'll just kind of eyeball it till it looks nice and flat, and that looks pretty good. Okay. Let me show you a little trick to figure out how good you've eyeballed it. Let me unhighlight that. Let me get out of the move mode and let me select one of these middle points. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to check its properties by going to F2. Okay, and this point currently is sitting at minus 2.328. It's only relative to the original part. Don't worry about the fact that it's up, sitting up above the ground here about 10 meters. This number right here is the number we're looking for. If this number right here matches the number of this guy or this guy, which should be the same, then we're in business. So 2.328. Let's go ahead and come out here and just with the crosshairs only. And again, you cannot be in any mode. You can't be in move, rotate, or scale. With the crosshairs, just right or left click on one of these points. Okay, and we were looking for 2.38. Go to F2, and it's at 2.39. Okay, so all I need to do is just copy this number right here. I can actually highlight it, go Control C, like you're working in Microsoft Word or something. Come back in here, and then just make sure I think I can just go Control V. Yeah, I can paste it. Look at that. Okay, but you got to make sure you get all 3 of these points, or all 2 of them. So I'll click on it again. It'll move to the next point in the line, which is this guy up here, F2. And this time I'll just enter it, 2.39. Okay, and now I know it's perfectly flat because it's in the same plane as these 2 other guys. And now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Part and Center Axis to Part. Alright, so now using a copy of the outside of the roof, I've now made essentially a flat polygon structure, a flat polygon part that I know is perfectly flat, and I know I can move down to the base of this model to use as the floor section, interior floor section, which if you guys have ever seen a hangar, usually the hangar floor is separate from like the actual ramp or the tarmac structure. The hangar floor is usually a concrete that's poured in there on its own. So for our model here, we want to try to make it look a little bit different so that when the doors are open, there's just some different looking kind of stuff in there, and it's a little bit more convincing. Alright, so now we need to move this whole part, so I'll go back to F5 or the part mode. And instead of moving it with the move mode, I'll just come in here to part properties. Okay, notice right here its y-axis location is at 10.2 meters. Okay, if I really want it on the floor, I could put it to 0, you would think, and we'll go ahead and do that for now, and that's fine. And again, we can't see it because everything else is hidden in here, and so again, I'll use my little trick. I'll highlight it. I'll press A for everything else, H to hide that. Okay, and here we have our floor section. Now, from experience, I can tell you if we put this at 0, which we just did, which is right on the ground plane, okay, right on the, I guess that would be the X plane, we're going to have that same bleed-through problem. Okay, whether it's like an AvCAD file or whatever you have underneath this hangar, it might even be just the ground or the grass or a grass texture. If you don't elevate this thing just slightly, it's going to have bleed through. So what you can do is come in here to F2, and again I'm in meters, so let's do I don't know, 1/10 of a meter, which would be 10 centimeters. Does everybody agree with that? Is that my metric system getting the best of me? So I'll go 0.1. We'll elevate this a little bit, and just to kind of see how much higher this is than the center line or the ground, I'll put the grid back in here. We'll expand this view, and I'll zoom this in just so you can see that that's a pretty good distance. In fact, that's probably too much, so I will go ahead and now just manually move it down to right about there. Okay, let me center that up, get out of this, okay, and then we'll just go from there. One thing you could try to do, and I don't know how well it works, is you could come in here and you could rotate the axis by going to rotate mode, holding the shift key down, come to this window over here, the right window, rotate the whole axis so that the Z axis is now pointing skywards. And let me check that, see if I got it. 91.5, so that was a little bit too far. Let me undo that and try it again. And that's close enough. Let me again shift, try to get it just so it's just perfect. Try that, F2. There it is, 89. That's close enough. But what I could do is I could call this Z bias like we did in the last video, and at least try to give it a Z bias. Now whether or not this works, I don't know, but it's worth a try. So I'll go Z bias floor, and then we'll let the modeling program do the rest. Now real quickly, I want to put a different kind of texture on this. I want to go back and I want to use I don't want to use I do want to use tutorial, so I can just select the properties box. I want to put that concrete texture on here that we had used originally on the roof of this project. But I don't want to just use the whole sheet. I want to break it up a little bit, and again I'll show you how that's going to happen. So there's the floor. It looks okay, but it looks maybe a little bit, the scale of that looks a little bit too big. Alright, so again, here's our part. We're trying to shape the texture up a little bit so it looks a little bit more varied, just to give it some some additional features. Now right now, remember, we have all the other parts hidden so that we can see this floor, but what happens is when I start doing copy and paste, it's only going to show one part at a time. So in other words, to see this and to kind of see the process through here, I need to figure out another way to see my hangar floor while I create it. So let's unhide everything. So let's go Shift H. That's unhide everything, and we'll show you a little trick here. We could do one of two things. We could just flip the polygon, or easier yet, we could just flip the part in the I guess in this case it's the Z axis since we already rotated it. So let me go transform, flip, and Z, and there we go. Now we're looking at it from the bottom side, and that's fine for now. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and design it, set it all up, and then we'll join it all at the end, and then we'll just flip it back over onto its back, I guess, or onto. All right. So again, the easiest kind of way to divide this up without having to without having to make a whole new set of parts is I'm just going to come in here and go to point mode. I'm going to surround. Let me see here. Actually, I think I've got a better way to do this. Let me stay in point mode. Let me just delete half of it. That's fine. It'll hold that texture definition. And if I want, I can actually just come in here and go part center axis to part. I can redefine the texture. No, that's not going to work either because I actually did the top. That's not going to work. Let me clear this out. Watch what happens when I clear it out. Nothing should happen. Okay, it did happen. It actually cleared out. So in this case, I think, let me see which way the polygon's pointing, facing down. So I think we'll have to do the bottom here to make this work. Let me try texturing the bottom with just this piece of hanger concrete or whatever, and let's see what happens now. Kind of figuring out a different way to do this as I go. Alright, so if I do the bottom, I think that's going to grab it. Even though we flipped the axis around, I think it's going to use the bottom. If not, we'll just do the top, and then that should take care of it. Alright, so it did texture the bottom. Okay, great, perfect, no problem. Alright, so let's take this, and again, the only reason I'm doing it upside down is so we can see what we're doing here. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother doing it upside down, but again, this is just showing you a different way to think about stuff. Let's scale it in the Y direction so it scales to the halfway point here. So I'll restrict everything else, and I'll scale it to the Y. I'm going to center it up. I'm going to go in here as far as I can go to make sure I get it in as far as I can go. I want this orange line to line up with my axis right there. That should be all the way. Let me center it up, zoom it out here a little bit. And again, you can see that that texture has applied itself, just like we had it. Let me go center axis to part. Alright, now let me copy paste this and move it. Since we're on the center line, I can move it backwards, I think. So let me go copy, paste, and let me put the z-axis. Let me go negative here. Let's see if this works. It did work. Okay, good. Except we've got a little gap there, and I don't know if you can see that in the video, but we'll fix that gap here in just a second. Alright, so I've got a gap in there, but what I've done is kind of given my texture it's like a way to tile your texture without actually having to tile it. So I've just simply kind of created the tiles on my... Alright, so let me see if I can flip this texture real quick. Let me go in here to the bottom, go to properties. If I flip it in the Y, or I invert it in the Y direction, I think that'll make it look different enough that it's more convincing. Okay, good. That actually lines it up a little bit, and then actually looks okay. So let me do that. Let me go with that, and then I'm going to join these two parts. So come in here, I'll go join, and just to make sure I can get rid of that gap, let me go to point mode. I should be able to scale these in the Y direction. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Let me go back. Hang on. Stand by. And join them, and let's see if I can snap to scale. Let's see if that'll get rid of the gap. If it eliminates, I think, 2 points or 3 points, that should get rid of the gap. If you can see the gap over here in the video, let's see if it goes away. Okay, 2 points eliminated, and we still have a gap in there, so we have to fix this gap. Let me go part, center axis to part. Now we can scale it, and it should draw these two together. There we go. Maybe. No, that's because they're just one part. Alright, that is most likely because of the texture definition. So if I come back in here and I undo the texture definition, I'm going to lose that. So I say we just leave that in there. We'll make it, use it as like a crack type of feature. Just something to, break the texture up. And now I just want to copy and paste this guy to the other side. So go copy, paste. We'll move it over here to the negative side of the X. Okay, and then you can notice we actually have a gap in there, and whether or not we want that gap in there, it's kind of up to you. It kind of looks like the the joints that they pour into these floors anyway. But notice that the two textures don't line up. If you want to try to line them up, you could probably imagine you could try to. Well, you can't really flip the texture at this point. It's not going to take. You could try flipping the part, but it may not quite line up. Let's try that. Let's go flip X real quick. Yeah, it kind of lines up. I guess you could go with that. That doesn't look that bad. Actually looks like we planned it that way with that little center structure there in the middle, and then the four gaps. But I'm pretty sure these gaps are going to show up in game. So let's see if we can get rid of those real quick. Let me join the whole thing up. And again, as long as I join it up, okay, center the axis to the part. We're not going to lose our texture feature just yet. Let's see, center axis to part. We've still got our z-axis pointed up. So that should be okay. Let me see if I can snap it to scale and get everything. Okay, that's 3 points eliminated, but it still didn't get rid of my gap. So there is a way to fix this, I think. So again, part of this gap is just, I think it's just a black piece of the texture from the texture sheet. So I'm not too worried about that. But if it actually has a gap in the actual part, you'll see through it, which we don't want. So let me try to undo that gap by using the scale feature here. In this case, let me do X. Let's see if I can get it to scale itself together. No, doesn't look like it's going to happen. Alright, that's one way to try it. Let me come up here. I can go to File. I can go to Preferences. Oops, that's the wrong thing. File, Project Properties. Let me change the Snap to Scale feature. That's 0.1. That should be plenty. Let me try 0.01. What the heck? Let me try it now. Part, Snap to Scale. Can we get it? Nope. Alright, we're just going to live with it. That's fine. I'm not, I'm not going to get too upset about it, but it is what it is. So that's just a way to show you how you can, use your texture to your advantage. You can take, one little piece or one little sample of a texture, and you can kind of, make it look better than it looks, as you have it on your texture sheet. So that's just that's all we're trying to do there. We're actually getting a little more complicated than we need to at this point. We're just trying to do some neat stuff here with what we. So again, part of this gap is just I think it's just a black piece of the texture from the texture sheet. So I'm not too worried about that. But if it actually has a gap in the actual part, you'll see through it, which we don't want. So let me try to undo that gap by using the scale feature here. In this case, let me do X. Let's see if I can get it to scale itself together. No, doesn't look like it's going to happen. Alright, that's one way to try it. Let me come up here. I can go to File. I can go to Preferences. Oops, that's the wrong thing. File, Project Properties. Let me change the Snap to Scale feature. That's 0.1. That should be plenty. Let me try 0.01. What the heck? Let me try it now. Part, Snap to Scale. Can we get it? Nope. Alright, we're just going to live with it. That's fine. I'm not, I'm not going to get too upset about it, but it is what it is. So that's just a way to show you how you can, use your texture to your advantage. You can take, one little piece or one little sample of a texture, and you can kind of, make it look better than it looks, as you have it on your texture sheet. So that's just that's all we're trying to do there. We're actually getting a little more complicated than we need to at this point. We're just trying to do some neat stuff here with what we. Alright, so it's time to quit dinking around with this model and just get the whole thing done here. Let me get out of this view so we can see the whole thing. Let me go, oops, center again, zooming in here. So we've got our little concrete floor here. It needs to be flipped over so that it can be seen on the inside. So we'll do that here. Again, you can just, since it's one part now, we can just go transform, flip, Z. And again, the axis doesn't flip, but the part does. So it'll be visible on the interior now. So now the last thing we want to do is come in here and we want to open up the hangar doors. And I think there's a way to do this, if I remember correctly, without messing up the textures. So let me zoom in here. In fact, I'm going to get rid of one side because again, we'll copy and paste the other side when we're ready. And again, that's kind of the beauty of using this system. So let's take it. You know what? We're going to affect. Let me try something here, but I think we're going to end up affecting the whole look of this. Although actually, if we go like this, we just select those two sets of points, and we move them in the X, and we shorten them up. Oh, perfect! It's going to leave it just like I wanted it to. So because we haven't changed the texture definition, we didn't lose the. Notice we didn't lose the shading. It did not re-stretch the hangar doors at all. It just kind of left it where it was. So we can very easily manipulate the whole set of hangar texture or the whole set of hangar doors without losing the textures that we had applied to the front or the back or the sides of them, without having to go back in and manipulate the entire set of doors and then retexture them. So let me show you that again. Let me back out of that and show you how I did that. All I did is came into point mode. There we go. And just selected the individual points that make up this part, which were the three separate doors, and I just squished them in one at a time until we got it, to where we wanted it. And the look, again, because we're not changing the part texture definition, the parts hold their original textures, so the look actually stays the same. And let's move those over just a little bit more. There we go. So we kind of have a nice look to it, maybe even a little bit more so they look symmetrical, and that's fine. And then I'll go part, center axis to part. Again, this is important because we're going to copy this guy. Copy, paste. Okay, I want to flip it in the X. There it is. There it's now like a mirror reciprocal, and then we're just going to come over here and change the X-axis location. Let me save this while we're working on it. And then let's hit Shift C and get out of the move mode so I don't screw anything up. And then let's take a look at our final look at our result here. And we'll zoom in, and we have a textured hangar with an open interior. There's our hangar floor as seen only from above, obviously. Okay, but we now have ourselves an entire textured hangar, complete with textured doors and the whole works. Now, if you're thinking about it, the roof of a hangar like this is going to be a little bit darker, so you may want to, if you're working on a texture sheet, you may want to apply like a shading layer to this top, and then maybe even a shading layer to the very top of this this texture sample, so that it looks more realistic. But that's kind of getting into some more advanced kind of stuff. again, you can work on that on your own when you have a chance. All right, there's one last thing I want to add to this model. Personally, I don't think the hangar looks right. It's just a basic empty shell right now. I think if we added, maybe some interior structure or supports or something, it might look a little bit more decent or more realistic. We could also add lockers in here and all kinds of other stuff. But again, the amount of detail you put into your models is obviously up to you. The more detail you put into it, the more polygons you use, the harder it is on your scenery. And don't forget, this is a open hangar. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't advise making an entire scenery where every single hangar is open. If we've got we basically have twice the polygons on this hangar than we would normally have, just because we have an interior to it as well. So I always try to limit myself to maybe just 1 or 2 open hangars. I think that's enough to keep everybody out there in sim world pretty happy and without too many complaints. So let's just real quick, let's make some some support beams that go across the walls and in the tops here. And I think probably an easy way to do that, I think, is just to take a couple parts of the existing structure, because it all fits together so well, and we'll just kind of mold those and merge those into one, and we can make the part from that. So I think for me the easiest way to do it is to start out with either the interior or exterior of the structure. This is the looks like the exterior of the building. That's fine. I'll just take this, I'll go copy and paste, and what I really want is I think I just want this front piece from it, because I think that'll make the nice cross brace. So I'll delete all that, and I'll take this guy here. Let me delete the orphan points so that we don't have those hanging out. Let me center this guy up, and again, by doing it this way, I know that it already fits. It already fits my hangar. Let me move it so that it's right back on the zero line here, and if you can kind of see there from the picture, we kind of can see it there. Let me center it up here. Alright, so it's kind of in there. It may or may not be the right kind of look to it or whatever, but that's fine for now. Let me clear out its textures, because we don't need all these extra things, just so we can kind of see the look we're going after. And I think for me to be comfortable with this, I think what I should do is to make it look, I think, a little bit more realistic, is to, let me back out, hang on, is to take the points, and we'll just make it into like a triangle shape for now. Let's move this guy over, just one side over, and again, we could just copy and paste it here in a second to make a second half. But let me move this over so he's just a half like that. And I think what I want to do is I want to come in here, I want to select these 2 points. I want to hit Control A. That'll add a 3rd point in here. Okay, and then I'll take this bottom guy and I'll move him over to something that looks somewhat realistic. Let me move that guy there, and we'll move this guy up a little bit, and just all I'm doing is kind of creating what I think would a support beam would look like, and this is literally only going to be half of it. So let me see if we can center this guy up. Let me see what that looks like on the interior here of the hangar. That's not too bad. I think I could live with that and be happy with that. So let me go part, center axis to part. That's fine. Okay. Let's do the other portion of it, the up and down portion. So an easy way for me to do that again is to go copy, paste, go to point mode. Let me take the points out here, and then this is going to screw it up as far as like flipping it. But the thing it does is it guarantees me that these 2 points right here will line up or will join themselves. All right, so if I select these 2 outer points here, and I just move them down to what is essentially the floor of this guy, notice it'll distort the whole thing. But I think what I'm trying to do here is just make sure that we get everything nice and lined up. So let me center this. I'll straighten this out in a second, and maybe this isn't the best way to do it, but basically we'll take this guy, we'll move him down so he's basically centered up and on the center of our model. There we go there. Take his partner here, we'll center him up so that they're both level. Let me zoom out and see how this looks. I'm gonna have to flip this here in a second. So I think that's kind of the look I'm going for. On this one, I'll take it and I could just flip the whole part. Actually, I think think if I flip it into Z, there we go, it'll show up. Alright, and then let's take these two and join them so we can manipulate them as one. Center that up, and then that way I can come in here, I can fix it. First of all, we'll put these guys down here as low as we can go to the ground. Let's make sure we get that, and they're obviously not quite perfect, so let's fix that in the y-axis. No X movement, no Z. That's good there, and we'll take them all the way down. That's good. These can stick down below the ground. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Center the part up. And now let's let's just move this stuff around a little bit so that it looks a little bit more realistic as far as like a support beam. So usually kind of a squarish, a straight beam on the side like this, and we'll move this down a little bit. Again, nothing too fancy here, just enough to get our money's worth out of it. And let me restrict it in the X, and let me just fix that a little bit. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that as far as the part and as far as that part looks. So let me go part, center, axis to part. Notice it's kind of down there. Let's center it up. Let's take a look at it in the window here. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I'll save myself a little bit of work now by going ahead and selecting a texture for it. That way when I copy paste, that texture is already on there. And again, I'm not going to get too fancy with this. I'm just going to use just some generic gray piece of this texture right here. It's not a big deal to me. So we'll do that. That looks fine. It's nothing special. And now what I'm going to do is go, let's go copy, paste. Let me flip it in the Z so that it faces the opposite direction, and then let me move this part back just a little bit like that. So if we come in here and look, we have a back side to it as well. And now I'm going to join these two. Let's join them up. They're joined. I'll go part, center, axis to part. And now I just need to make polygons for just this section right here and this section right here. And I think I can do that very easily. I can actually cheat it this time, and I think I can just go here and highlight these 4 points or vertices. Remember there's 4 in there. If I go Control P, oh, it didn't work. Alright, so delete that polygon. We'll have to do it the hard way. We'll have to do it just 3 points at a time, which is fine. So let me go to my crosshairs here. That's 1 point there. Let's see, the bottom guy, that's 1 point there, and then we'll do his cousin back here. Oh, let's see there, and then we'll click them again. There we go. That's what I want, I think. Let me go Control P and see if that does. Yeah, that's what I wanted right there, and that should produce. He's the wrong way. There we go. That's going to produce kind of the. Is that doing that right? There we got my polygons flipped backwards. Up. I got my polygons flipped backwards. Hang on here. That's what's going on. Let me flip. That's what's going on. These are all facing the wrong way. Flip, thank you. Flip, thank you. Flip, thank you. And flip, thank you. There we go. That's what we're after there. Alright, let me go back into point mode, and now we just need to do the other sets of points. That's 1. I know his buddy needs it. That's 2. And I think up here, this other guy is the other one. Yeah, that's 3. Let me go Control P, and I think we flip him, and there we go. Alright, so all I did was built this interior portion of this piece just by building the polygons, which is something we covered way back in the one of the basic. Alright, so I got a little out of sequence with the video there, but I think this is about where we were here. So we just need to finish this off by building the rest of the polygons, and I just need to make sure that I don't have any extra points in here. So let me go snap to scale. Hey, we got rid of 4 different points, which is good because it makes it harder to build the polygons when there's points that are basically sitting on top of each other. So that should eliminate any duplicate points, and we should be able to build the rest of these polygons without too much trouble. Let me fix one little thing here. Hang on. Let me get this over so it's out of the way. We're basically in the way. Alright, that looks good there. So I need to finish this guy here. So Shift U to undo that. Let me get rid of my cursor or my move button there. And I need, let's see, I need this guy here. I need the one behind it. So just click on it again. And then I need, looks like the back one down here. Not that one, that one. Let me go Control P, and that that did the trick. Good. And then I just need to finish by building the upper set of points here. So we can just choose 1, highlight, 2, highlight. Either one of these will work. Highlight, 3. Actually, let me try all 4. What the heck? And let's get a little greedy and see what happens here. It's not gonna work. So we'll just go back to what we had here. So 1, highlight, 2, highlight. And again, this is just basic, building polygons, which we covered in one of the early tutorials. It's 3. We'll build that guy there, and then we just need to fill it out by selecting him, select his buddy, and then let's see. We need to get, I believe, is it that one? It's the. Let me see here. Yeah, it's the forwardmost one, so it would be this guy. And Control P. It's facing the wrong way. Let me F key, flip it, and there we go. Okay. That is what we were after. Alright, so now we just have to throw a couple textures on this guy. Let me go back to part mode F5. Let me go to texture mode F4. And let's do the backside. I thought we did it already, but just to be sure. And again, just a generic gray texture that kind of matches the rest of the hangar is fine. We'll just use a piece up here, no big deal. And I think it's the left side. Let me look. Yeah, it's going to be the left side that needs to be textured. Same thing. And again, that's the side that's facing inwards towards the hangar. It's on the right side of the model, but it's facing to the left, so that's the one we need. All right, and there we go. That's what we were looking for. Let's do this. Let's go copy, paste, transform, flip in the X direction. There's his buddy. Okay. Let me go F2 and let me move his X-axis location to the opposite side. Boom. Let me take him, highlight him. Let me take the original one, highlight this guy. Let me join them. Let's go part, center axis to part, and let's see how we did. I think up here was a little bit messy. Center. And boy, it looks like when I recorded, I shorted the design window here. No big deal. All right, let me go in, and there we can see that these 2 points aren't quite squared up with each other. I can fix that very easily. Select both of them. I can select scale in the X direction. Scale them together until they won't scale anymore. That looks good. Let me zoom out there. That looks pretty good. I think this thing is actually a little bit too big. We can fix that as well. Let me just fix that right now. It looks like it's sticking up above the roof line, so let's just bring it down a little bit underneath the roof. Actually, it looks like our 2 roofs aren't quite perfect, but that's fine. Alright, let's go part, snap to scale, get rid of any extra points. Good, we got rid of 4 points. Let's center the whole project up, and let's just simply copy and paste this fairly quickly, and then we'll be done. So we'll, let's see, let's make, and we can do it using the boxes. Let's go 1, paste, and let's move it, let's see, is 10 meters going to be too far? No, that's perfect. 10 meters ahead, and actually let's move it even further. Let's go just a little bit further. That's fine. And then we'll go copy paste his buddy, and we'll just do him the reciprocal, which is going to be minus 11.53, and there we go. I'll save the project before I forget it, and let's take a look at it. Okay, so there's our, looking from the outside, it kind of looks like now we have some support structures in there for the for the roof itself. Now if you wanted to, you could take these beams, you could join them to the interior. You could then go back and reapply the textures, and the textures would actually wrap around these support beams so that it would look uniform. But again, that's up to you if you want to do that kind of thing. All right, so there it is. That is our basic hangar, outside and inside. Notice this one doesn't have the doors or the symbols. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning. But if you go in the game and the floor here is flickering through it, you just need to bring it up a little bit. These gaps, I think, this is either part of the texture, which in that case it looks actually fairly good, but I think those might actually be gaps in the actual part. But they should eliminate once you scale them close enough together and then go snap to scale. But if that is indeed part of the black texture, from the texture sheet, then it's not that big of a deal. It actually somewhat looks natural with the with those kind of expansion joints in there. So that's our hanger, and you guys are free to use that on your own, compile that on your own, and build more from there. And then the cool thing is with the whole copy and paste deal is that if you want, let's see, let me get out of this real quick. You can very quickly, let's see, select the whole thing, so select the whole friggin' thing, copy, paste, and then you can move it, in the X direction or whatever. You can move it next door to its buddy. Okay, and then do another paste and move this guy next door to its buddy. And one thing you have to do when you do this, let me show you what's going on over here. You probably won't see all three hangers. Notice we have I think we talked about this in the first set of videos. Notice only parts of the parts actually copied and pasted. It's just I think it's a bug in the program, no big deal. All I have to do is go to the undo button and then the redo button, and then they all three show up. Okay, so very quickly, notice I didn't have to copy individual parts or whatever. Very quickly I now have 3 open hangers. Okay, and it's just the whole copy and paste thing is just an incredibly powerful way to, especially if you're building multiple hangers of the same exact type or whatnot. It's just a really easy way to increase your efforts. If you want, you could use your highlight box. You highlight all of these, and let's see, you could copy all of them. So that's 3. Now we have 6, and I think if we rotate, wait, hang on, let me go to the centermost part, and I think I can rotate these so that they face the other ones. There we go. Just rotate these guys around to kind of eyeball that a little bit. Try to get it perfect. We'll move it in the Z direction, and again, Shift U, go undo, just as a habit, go undo, redo. That'll just save you a headache, trust me. Shift C, and then let's look at the results of all of our labor. We should have 6 hangers here, all with open doors, and a nice little cluster. Okay, so you can see how quickly you can start building scenery. Once you get kind of what I like to do is make one like master version of a hanger. If there are going to be a bunch of hangers all the same, I'll make a master version. For example, one with the doors open like this, and then I will, then I'll start making copies from there, and you can vary the doors and do all kinds of fun stuff like that. Okay, but remember, if you're going to close the doors, you're not going to see the interior. Get rid of all these interior polygons. You're not going to need those. Okay. So that's going to do it for the basics on texturing and texturing models. And as far as scenery stuff goes, we're going to get into individual models, different things. We'll show you how to do rotating parts. We'll show you how to do animated parts. We'll spend some time looking at night textures. Night textures are fairly easy to do. It's just one of those things you have to learn how to do, and that requires a little bit of work on the actual texture sheets themselves. We'll do like a control tower, some aircraft shelters, that kind of stuff, and then any kind of requests anybody has, something you want to see me do, we can do that too. We'll also work with, we'll make up some like fences and other type of things that use an alpha channel, where you just make a solid part, but because of the alpha channel it looks transparent. So we'll do that kind of stuff too. So I hope you've enjoyed the series. Please give me your feedback. If nobody responds to these videos, I don't know if anybody's paying attention. It makes me feel like I'm wasting my time. I don't think I am, but I like to hear from you guys to know that these things are helpful, and it does take some of my personal time to do this. So any feedback you can give me would be greatly appreciated. And that's it. Come see us in the forums, and I don't know. Let us know what questions you have, and hopefully, like I said, sometime this summer we'll eventually get around to doing an aircraft model. All right, that's it. Take care.